So I started this video before and then I got about a million text messages. So I'm restarting, but I already ran this and so I'll walk you through it and you're going to get my syntax anyway. So if you don't believe me, that's okay. Okay, so I attached my data. I had more variables up here, so I indicated that the only variables I wanted to look at were group, experience, and post-test score. Experience is my covariate, and then group is the predictor. So I used this function to label the groups. They were 1, 2, and 3, and I indicated no training for group 1, old training method for group 2, and new training method for group 3. So from there, did that, and I ran these to get the descriptives, mostly interested in the mean and standard deviation from these of the post-test score and experience. And then we ran a Levene's test to see whether the variance in the post-training score with the outcome variable varied across groups that receive the different training methods. So that's indicated by group. And from this, we can see that the Levene's test is not significant, and that means that for the data, the variances are similar. And if this test had been significant, we could instead conduct and report a robust version of ANCOVA, but since I don't have to do that, I will just mention it here. Also, you can calculate Welch's F as another way, another form of testing. If the Levene's test had been significant, this is something else that I would have done. And the results from this imply that the mean post-training score did not differ significantly across the training methods that were used, the three various methods. Okay, so from there, I made a new model indicating that the variable I wanted to run in my ANCOVA. So experience as my my covariate, and then adding in group as my other variable in the second. So then we ran an ANCOVA using this new model. And we can see that the effect of the group is not significant from the values noted here. And it shows that the average level of experience was roughly the same across the three training groups. So the means for the post-test score are not significantly different than in the control, old training, or new training methods groups, and this indicates that it's appropriate to use experience as a covariate in further analysis. So then I had to run a type 3 sum of squares. The number of participants in each group was not equal, so I can run with that model another ANCOVA. Also not significant. And then from there, we can run the summary parameters for the ANCOVA. So looking at this, we know that the results of the ANCOVA revealed no significant difference between experience in the old training method nor the new training method. And it indicates the b-value as well being 0.03. So since this is positive, that means that the covariate and the outcome variable have a positive relationship, but obviously that number is so small that it's incredibly insignificant. So it's important to note that after conducting an ANCOVA, we have to carry out more analysis to find out which groups do differ when they are actually significant. And in order to avoid type 1 errors, we have to break down the variance accounted for by breaking the model into the component parts. So that's how when we use plan contrast. Or we can also compare every group as if conducting multiple t-tests and use a stricter criterion so that error rate does not rise above the indicated 0.05. And you can do this by using post hoc tests, but we're going to do plan contrast for this data. And it's of note to say that you should derive your hypotheses before data are collected in order to avoid bias in the data. So breaking down the contrast, doing it by hand, I think is the easiest way to think of it. If like in a chart form is what I did to figure out how to make the values equal 0 and visualize how I would pull out the different contrasts. So when you do a plan comparison for an ANCOVA, the t-test is conducted and you compare the mean of one chunk of the variation with the mean of the different chunks. So the first chunk compared to the second, and the significant values of the t-tests usually show that the differences were different than the control, and then that the experimental groups were significantly different, but my values do not indicate that. So from this, this is for the first contrast criteria. So this is comparing the groups, the old training method, the new training method to the no training method. And then from that, this is comparing the two different training methods. And then I combined this, indicating that I want to see the difference in the groups from that. And this is the chart that I actually had made. So this is the same thing, just to make sure that they're negating each other. And from this, we run the contrast, or maybe not. Just kidding, got it. Okay. So these plan contrasts reveal that the old training method did not have an effect on the post-training scores when compared to the control group. So we can see that indicated value with the t. And then, of course, the p-values. And the post-training scores in the new training group compared to the old training group did not differ either. So if p had been less than 0.05 for the given p-values, this would reveal that the differences between the groups were significant. So next, we can't interpret the group means currently because they haven't been adjusted for the effect of the covariate. So the original means don't really tell us anything about the group differences that are reflected by the ANCOVA. Were significant. So from that, we have to adjust the means and view the standard error. So we're adjusting the means for the covariate. And the resulting values show that when the means are adjusted for the effect of this covariate, it appears as experience increases, the post-test scores also increased, and you can view this, the standard errors below adjusted means. So the numbers are, oh, I changed my data actually, so this is not true. So there's still no effect. These values are not increasing. There's no indication that the as experience increases, the post-test score also increases. Okay. So then we were asked to run a scatter plot. And this will also just give us another way to view the relationship of the covariate and the dependent variable. And it's slightly going up, increasing, but it's not good. And we can also generate, using the plot function to generate different plots to test assumptions. So as we know, this is to test for homogeneity of variance, and that is also not good. And then we know that they should not be split. And then the QQ plot is for the normality of the residuals, and they should follow along the diagonal line in theory, but these are obviously off in some places, so not a good data set. Sorry. Okay. So then we can we have to run the the testing assumptions of the homogeneity of variance with the regression slopes, and then we have to run the ANCOVA again. And so we created the model of the homogeneity of regression slopes, which includes the covariate of experience and the independent variable, and then test their interaction. So when comparing the covariate to the predictor variable, so the group, there is no significance indicated by the p-value. This one. And the assumptions of homogeneity and regression slopes has not been broken. So this was trying to run the well, they were for that was for the effect sizes, and it did not work. We took the values from the ANCOVA output, and we plugged in our degrees of freedom, but this function does not exist with this version of R, so that didn't go very far. And then, because we were supposed to, albeit not necessary, we created a model and ran the post hocs to determine the differences between the adjusted means amongst the groups. So that is here. Yay. So you can look at these two different ones for those. Okay, thanks. Bye.